Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. You have tuned into, see what I did there? Another edition of But Before We Go, the podcast by Gen X, for Gen X, really for everybody, and about Gen X. So it's everything that we experience in our lives, and we're sharing it with you before we go. With me today is the ever talented, but not that lovely, Mr. Steve Hunt. Steve, say hi to the nice people.
Good day, whatever the time of day it is.
And also the lovely and talented host of the From Bench to Boardroom podcast, Dr. Cynthia Steele. Cynthia, the nice people are awaiting you.
Hello, nice people, and good to see you both again. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. So to jump right into the topic matter of today's podcast, and I don't know, but somehow I have dropped into my radio voice. I'm not sure how that happened, but it has.
I like it, Phil.
After Toto, Christopher Cross, and Air Supply in this next 40-minute rock block with limited commercial introduction. So our topic today is the first of our two back to school themed episodes. And today's topic would happen to be that bane of at least North American existence, but I think global existence. Back to school, or as your wish, looking at you, UK, back to term shopping. That yearly ritual when mom and dad would take us out to prep for the coming year. Cynthia, not being from the great state of Maryland as the two of us are, what did all of this signify to you? How did
Gen-
this ritual go on in your household?
Gentlemen, it is the most wonderful time of the year. Do
What?
you remember? Do you remember there was a Staples commercial? I think it was Staples or Office Max, and they played the Christmas Carol. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and the two parents are skipping along with the shopping cart, and the two kids are walking behind them at a glacial pace with their heads hung. I mean, I I still laugh at that commercial. I think that commercial is hilarious. No, so you're right, Bill. I grew up outside Chicago, and I was one of the few kids that actually really enjoyed back to school shopping. I was always sad that, the summer was over and I couldn't ride my bike every day, but back to school meant new beginnings. Back to school meant a fresh start, especially if you were starting a new school. In my school system, we had the same school from K through 3, and then 4, 5, and 6, and then no, I'm sorry, fourth and fifth, and then sixth, seventh, eighth was junior high school, and that was a different school, and then obviously high school. And so, especially if you were changing schools, like physical buildings, it just felt like an opportunity for new beginnings. And so, I personally loved back to school shopping because everything was new. And I can't wait to get into, we would go to the front of the school and they would post who was in which classroom, and so you would always get to see, who are you with, and are your friends with you, and who's your teacher this year, and your friends older siblings would say, oh, this person's so great or that person's so terrible, and you'd get your school supply list. And there was just something very energizing and exciting for me about it. Now Bill's giving
Well,
me that look to say that I'm crazy, so please, Bill.
well, next episode is the first day of school, so
Okay,
hold
we won't
hold
get into
that
that.
thought. We'll get there shortly. But back to the back to school shopping. What did that look like in your household? I am picturing like trips to multiple stores. I
Oh yeah.
mean, what was involved? Was it clothing? Was it supplies? Was it well, what did all that entail? And
so
how elaborate a process was this?
so the I will say my mother always would check, all of the inserts to find out who had the best prices on paper and rulers and pencils and all the different back to school sales. And so sometimes it was Walgreens, sometimes it was Kmart, sometimes it was Venture, some of our old school like department stores. And so we would, and when my sister was in high school as well, she was also school age, she would have to get double everything. So we would have our two lists and we would go to our local, Kmart and department stores and try to find everything that was on the list. And usually they were very specific, right? Like they would say, we want these kinds of pencils. We need to have these kinds of pens. You need to have this type of paper, you know. The binders though, oh gentlemen, girls my age will know exactly what I'm talking about when I say we had to find our Lisa Frank binders and the binders that were going to represent exactly who we were. You remember these very bright colors? And they were usually dolphins involved or unicorns involved or something that was going to reflect, your personality. This is your brand for this year. And so, I didn't care so much about the pencils and paper and, whatever new calculator we for some reason needed this year as opposed to last year. But the binders were a big deal. And the other big deal, Bill, you touched on it, was clothing. So where my mom saved money on our school supplies, she would then spend it on the clothes. And so we would go, some years it was a very special occasion. We would go like to downtown Chicago, or we would go to like the nice mall. Every town had a really nice mall, right? Like you had your normal mall, you had your dirt mall, and then you had like the really nice mall. So sometimes, oh yeah, come on, Bill, you remember your dirt mall growing up. I remember what our dirt mall was. No, we would go to, sometimes we would go to the really nice mall and we would go to the really nice stores and we would buy just a few really fantastic outfits. Because again, this is your chance in that first few days. It's critical to build your personal brand for that year. And we took that very, very seriously in our house.
Wow. How long before the start of school did you prepare? Did you do all this?
I remember it being like late August, early September, depending on when school year would
So
start.
like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I would say at least 3 weeks. You gotta give that stuff time. You can't rush perfection, Bill. If you can't find what you need right away, you need time,
This is all true.
Haircuts were involved too, usually, you gotta, especially probably for you guys, like, nope, you can't look unruly anymore. You gotta get a haircut. And as we girls got older, maybe we start playing with a little bit of makeup and stuff too. I mean, it took time. You had to get ready to, step out on stage.
Steve?
Well, ours, it was a two-step process for school shopping, and having kids. Well, I still have one in high school, the other one's graduated. It's definitely different now, where you just like you get your list from the school, you go on Amazon and fill it out, or maybe the occasional run to a Target or well, pretty much a Target, maybe a Kohl's, and you're out of there. So it's certainly much more of a quick, easy exercise than it was for us. So for us, it was two things. Being military children, the supplies were purchased at the base exchange because the prices there were better than anywhere else because it was on base. So the supply part of it and the basic necessity part of it was basically going to the base exchange with our lists and going around mom and saying, okay, what do you need, and just getting stuff. So that was the easy part. The fun part, and Cynthia, I love your point about the 3 levels of malls. Now, mind you, Bill grew up in Elkridge, so in Howard County there was really only like one mall. So unless you left the county, Bill, you can tell us that later. But for
I don't know why you're speaking for me right now, but okay.
When Cynthia said you had a look when she was talking about the malls.
Not what Cynthia said. Where is your time, Mr. Hunt?
Okay, well then I'll go to my.
Talk about your experience.
Okay, my experience. So in Prince George's County, you had 2 malls. The top mall was Springfield over Virginia. We weren't trying to drive all the way to Springfield, but for us, there was Iverson Mall, which was the crap mall. You went there only if you had to, and you only had a few minutes to go get some stuff. The good mall was Landover Mall. And so for clothes and other things related, that was the big thing for us because we got to go to Landover Mall and we hit the Sears and we hit Sears hard. And it was like an adventure of going in there. You hit Sears, maybe hit a couple of other stores in the mall, capped off by dinner and ice cream at Farrell's in Landover Mall. So that part of back to school shopping was the part you look forward to. I mean, going on base and grabbing a bunch of pens and pencils and notebooks and binders, yeah, whatever. But then it was okay. Saturday we're going up to Landover, which that was a way of saying Landover Mall. We just referred to it as Landover. We're going up to Landover to take care of clothes, etc., shoes, you name it. And that was the big one. And you always look forward to that one because as you got older, you had a little more autonomy. I remember in elementary school, it was, she just grabbed a couple of different colored pair of tough skins and you were done. But as you got older, you got to have a little more autonomy of, I like this shirt or this, okay, I need this type of tennis shoe. I want this tennis shoe as opposed to just give me a pair of garden variety Chucks. And then, of course, dinner at Farrell. So that was the excitement for us, was the trip to Landover Mall.
Awesome.
Yep.
That was it. And so when did you start your shopping?
Around the same time. It was an end of summer thing. I mean, clothes we probably did before we did supplies. I mean, Mom we would go and get basic supplies that we knew we always needed. You always needed pencils. You always needed notepads. I mean, there was stuff that no matter what the grade, you needed certain things. And then there would be a return trip to the base exchange for those items that you, on the first day, they said, oh, you need to now have, to Cynthia's point, this calculator. So it's like, okay, return trip to grab, a couple of things, but most of it was pretty common. So, I would say the week before school started was when we would hit it, give or take.
Okay. If I can interject just for a second, Steve, I think that's actually a really good point, because the pencils, like the number 2 pencils and the big pens and the paper and stuff. I mean, some stores would start putting that stuff on sale like midsummer,
right?
Just because this is something that's going to be needed, and it just felt a little wrong, didn't it?
Yes.
Like my mom would come home with like pens and paper, and I'm like, no, you're too early for that. Absolutely not. It's like how I feel when people put their Christmas decorations up too early. Or I was at Michael's 2 days ago and they already have Halloween stuff up. Like, it is not August yet.
Yeah.
Why is their Halloween stuff up? So no, you do not buy your school supplies too early. I'm not ready for that.
Don't get me started on the people putting out stuff early, whether it's Michael's or any other store. That's a whole different.
That's a different podcast.
But to your point, Cynthia, you're absolutely right. When Mom would come home with the basic stuff, it was like a sign of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
As far as summer vacation, it was like la 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 la. I don't see what you wanted.
Totally.
Wow. Well, you two have spent the last 13 minutes plus talking about an experience of which I am 80% unfamiliar.
Okay.
So, talking about my back to school shopping, it was I can characterize it, and too bad he's not drinking for me to spew this out. It was occasionally nice, but mostly hateful. It was a lot. And it was a lot. So, Steve, thank you for attempting to regale me with your knowledge of the retail environment in Howard, Baltimore, and northern Prince George's counties in the 70s and 80s. But I'm going to educate your candy ass by telling you we had 4 levels of malls there.
Really?
4. Ooh. We had the nice mall, which was Columbia Mall. You got that much right. After that, you should we had the higher, the level down, like the medium, but still really good mall, which was Security Square Mall in Woodlawn. Okay. And since my dad worked for so long at Social Security, it was natural we would go there. We would have the nice, but a little bit shaky mall, which was Westview Mall, which now is really no longer a mall. It's professional offices and a Value City department store. but it was a mall back then. And then you have Shitville, which was Laurel Mall.
Oh, the old Laurel Mall. Oh my
The
God.
original Laurel Mall
Oh.
where George Wallace got shot and all that crap.
Mm.
That was Laurel Mall.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you had your rando places. You had your Montgomery Wards in Baltimore and in Catonsville. You had your Hooks in Ellicott City that later would become Caldor and Bradley's. You had your one-offs, where you went to. So as you can tell, there was a wide array of places where we would go. You would think that then the decisions made would be sound choices, having such a wide selection. And again, 80% of the time they were not. So never any, I don't even know what a supply list even looked like. I didn't see a supply list until high school.
Oh.
I mean, but everybody was expected to get now, to Cynthia's point, I was familiar with the girls and their folders, but us guys got 3-ring binder, and it was blue, and it was canvas, and it was hard. And we filled that bitch up with notebook paper. We put in dividers for our different classes. We put in a ruler, which, as you know, Cynthia, has holes put in through the rings of the ruler. Very inside joke there. And
I recall,
you
Bill.
would
Thank you.
and then you would have a little plastic pencil case in which to put your pencils, your pens, if you were really Rudy Poo, a highlighter, and a couple other things. Like a protractor came in mind for math class and whatnot. And so there I need to talk more about clothing because as I just said, we went outside the norm and outside the minimum in terms of certain purchases. And this is where it all breaks down for me. I can't remember 3 first days of school, and we'll talk about this more next episode. Why I didn't go dressed with basically everything but a sign on the back of my shirt saying kick my ass.
Oh no.
I cannot remember. I mean, there were some years where dressing was spot on. It was a few pair of jeans. It was some t-shirts, some nice button-down shirts, like what we now call a polo shirt or two. And, I remember one year my dad spent a lot of money on me getting like nice like Land's End rugby shirts, which were really good at the thing at the time. You know, I mean, my look was, in middle and high school, my look was preppy who just didn't quite have as much money as, the top level preppies. Also, some horrific fashion choices. And which kids' clothing manufacturer thought to make these, I have no idea. Some years I begged for Garanimals. I one year, and I think this was my 6th grade year, when I started 6th grade at a completely new middle school, completely different than everybody I went to elementary school with. I didn't know a damn soul walking into Ellicott City Middle School. Nobody came with me. There was a thing. My dad didn't want me to go to Waterloo Middle. I had to go to Ellicott City Middle. It was a thing. Long story. That year, he bought for me 2 pair of wide wale corduroy pants. Now, considering that this was 1980, 1981 school year, or what was it? 6th grade for me was 78, 79. Corduroy pants, not that bad. They were a thing there. The wide wale, as opposed to the fine wale, which was maybe a millimeter, the wide wale was maybe like 3 or 4 millimeters. Not bad. I mean, you see, your friendly college professor wear these in like brown, navy blue, black, not in fire engine red or lemon yellow, which is what was bought for me.
Oh my God.
But at least I had tennis shoes to go with these, right? They don't sell tennis shoes at Florsheim.
Hmm.
I went to fucking middle school with like a regular t-shirt or button-down shirt, wide whale red and yellow corduroy pants, and hard shoes. New kid, 6'1", thin as a bean, from Elkridge in hoity-toity Ellicott City. No wonder that was the worst year of my life.
Hey, Bill.
Next to my separation, it was the worst year of my life. Yes, sir.
Why, as I'm hearing you talk about this, am I hearing the first verse of Parents Just Don't Understand in my ears? I'm hearing Will Smith riffing about the bell-bottom Brady Bunch trousers and it ain't Sha-Da-Da Mama Bowser. That's all I'm hearing right
I didn't
now.
protest. Don't think I didn't try to say, please don't do this. Please don't let my ass get kicked. I can remember shedding tears about what was going on in the Montgomery wards.
Oh
And
no.
my father said almost verbatim, "You're going to wear these in school and you're going to like it." How many Gen Xers have heard that? You're going to do this and you're going to like it. I wasn't going to like it. There was no timeline in which Phil Woodcock liked this.
Oh,
I
So
mean, it just didn't happen. Yes, Cynthia.
what I'm hearing, and if this may be a piece of advice for parents out there everywhere who may be listening to our voices right now, if you traumatize your children with humiliating clothes, again, going back to what I was talking about personal branding, you started a new building, this is your chance to show who you are and make your brand. If you humiliate your children on day one, they will remember it decades later.
And
yes.
they
And they
and they
will
do.
talk about it in public
Before they go.
before they go.
And my dad died in 06. So, I don't have a Ouija board, so I could care less. Man, this is the second straight podcast I mentioned a Ouija board. Why? I don't care. My dad can haunt me like Jacob Marley, and I will spurn him. I will hold up a silver cross and say, "You son of a bitch, you put me in those pants."
But I'm willing to bet that there's also a lot of people out there listening to this exact story and they have one very, very similar.
Oh yeah.
They have
Oh, yeah.
exactly that kind of story. Like, oh God. Actually, total aside, but a few months ago when it was my birthday, my mom texted me. I think I told Bill this story at the time, but my mom texted me and it was uncharacteristically sweet. She said something to the effect of, "I remember what your sister wore the day she came to visit you and me in the hospital." And I thought, oh wow, that's uncharacteristically touching of my mom. She usually doesn't say stuff like that. And I said, "Oh, what was she wearing?" And her response was, "Well, I laid out clothes for her for the few days, and your father got them all mixed up, and so she wore something totally different and nothing matched." And
Oh,
when I asked my sister, she said, "Oh no, I remember that. I remember what I wore too." And my sister was 7. And
oh,
she still remembers how, like, she said, people must have looked at us again. My parents were Eastern European. She said, all the doctors and nurses must have looked at me like that poor little refugee child in her completely mismatched outfit. So, yes, clothes do make a huge, huge difference, and we will remember.
Well,
yes.
those pants, I mean, I got wise about halfway through the year. And I realized that if they were destroyed, they could no longer be worn.
Oh, no.
So I actually leaned into those suckers and like I would go to gym class wearing those pants and let people F them up.
There you go.
I mean, I was telling a friend of mine recently that I kind of live my life, and possibly I still do live my life, by saying, I'm going to do this and let's see what happens. I think one of my very earliest examples of that was dealing with these damn pants. They neither one made it to seventh grade. By
Mhm.
seventh grade, I was wearing like, sweatshirts and t-shirts and jeans like a normal person. But that sixth grade year was rough. And if there's a one, I mean, sixth grade is bad enough as it is.
Oh,
And a
yeah.
new school is bad enough as it is. With no friends
Yeah.
is bad enough as it is. And then I had to look like I walked off of something off of like some some pier in Newport. I mean, it was just ridiculous. There were good times. I mean, there were cool things. One of the things I can remember was that so I don't know about y'all, but for me, around September 1st
Mhm.
to me it was like January 1st. It was the start of the year, and we'll talk
Sure.
about that more in the next episode. But one of the things I liked about the year, and Cynthia, you mentioned the back to school shopping and the way now that these shopping cycles change and like the Halloween stuff, I mean, basically came out after 4th of July.
Yeah.
Was that when you went to your Sears, your Wards, your JC Penney, all of that, not only was there back to school stuff, but the Christmas catalogs came out.
Mm.
So not only were you shopping back to school, you got to see your Sears Big Book.
Out of
And
luck.
so there was that, and for some reason, and I will talk, next episode about the harbingers of those first days of school. But I can remember, having to fill out the form for your catalog order,
Mhm.
if what you wanted for back to school wasn't in stock, and you looked in, and then your parents used the catalog to fill out their form, drop it off, make their payment, and then they would receive their items by not getting it shipped to them, by actually having to go back to the store and pick it up.
Of course.
But, well, you, the kid, were able to go look through the Christmas catalog. And
Yeah.
so that kind of softened the blow. And there was some cool stuff. And I eventually learned to lean into this, about having a wider array than a wider range of places to go to than a lot of my colleagues, because every once in a while I'd hit a home run, like with the rugby shirts, like with, some pair of shoes that was cool. Oh, and where'd you get that, Woodcock? Oh, I got it here. Oh, where's that? What's over in Woodlawn? Well, I don't think, where's Woodlawn? Well, there's a drive-in theater over there. There's a drive-in theater? What? And that was a big deal. So eventually you had to learn, you learn to adjust, but oh my Lord, all the ridicule. I have to say though, you guys had supply lists.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, first day of school, you got a list of things, and again, as I was saying, the stuff that you didn't already get because a lot of it was the basic stuff. Yeah, you had to do a quick fill in order. Sure.
How old did you remember? I mean, how from what age?
Young. Young.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
elementary school?
I think so. Well, at least fourth and fifth grade. That's as far back as I remember getting lists, because that's when the subject started to change a little bit. Like this year we're going to do algebra. And so you need this kind of calculator. Or this year we're going to learn about or we're going to do angles. We're going to do a little bit more, geometry and stuff. So this year you need your protractor or your compass or whatever. And so I remember getting those lists as, again, the topics would start to shift a little bit as we got older. And so therefore it wasn't just the same, like you need colored pencils and regular
yeah.
pencils and pens and stuff like that. But yeah, I remember the lists coming to, I want to say the lists came to our house, although maybe we also would get them when we would go check out who was in our classroom that year. That may have also happened at that same time. I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, it was at least well, I'll say middle school now, what we used to call junior high, because like Cynthia, when I was in school, it was still sixth, seventh, eighth,
Yep.
I'm sorry, it was 7th, 8th, 9th, and high school was 10th, 11th, 12th.
Okay.
So there were like graph paper for some of the
Yes.
math classes. That was one that you did not automatically go get. So
Mhm.
you get that first day of, oh, you have to have graph paper. Okay, go to the store, get graph paper. So little things like that. But we got them first day of class. It was, if you don't already have these things, these are the things you're going to need. And again, 90% of it we had because it was the same stuff. But little things like protractors, graph paper, like I said, it really was the math and science where you would normally get those variations.
But did you guys, so I remember having to pick those lists up before, like a couple weeks before school even started. But did you guys also get requests like everyone needs to bring a roll of paper towel? Everyone needs to bring a box of Kleenex. Everyone needs to bring like stuff for the entire classroom. Were you asked to do that? Because we were.
We were not. My kids definitely were. Like my kids every year there was a, bring here's stuff to bring in, here's stuff for the class. And oh, by the way, if you want to volunteer and
Sure.
send in extras, please do. But no, we never had that.
No, we never had that either. But yes, also for my kids. Also, these people now have it so easy. I know we don't normally talk about that on this podcast, but my word, in our local Target, there have been years where like it's spelled out,
Yes.
like for this school, you
Mhm.
need this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can literally buy the package
Yeah.
of all the supplies you need for Stevens Forest Elementary School are here. For Oakland Mills Middle are here. For Oakland Mills High are here. And it costs this much. You get a little extra saving as opposed to buying everything at their already low prices.
See, my mom would be utterly dismayed though, because again,
Yeah.
she would scour those inserts and who's got the best deals on pens, crayons, paper, folders, etc. That was, she was very good
Well,
at that in general, but it was almost like a game.
and those circulars, I mean, no pun intended, but it was the thrill of the hunt, right? And I
Yeah.
can remember that coming out in the Sunday paper, like the
Mhm.
first week of August, maybe second week. And I remember thinking about like, oh, all the cool stuff. We can get this from here, we can get this, we can get this. And it didn't always work out. Any final thoughts, folks?
Actually, I did. Sorry, Bill. Sorry, Steve,
Sure.
please.
That's why I asked.
My I wanted to ask you guys what your favorite thing to shop for was. And it was when I think Steve, you brought up pencil cases, or maybe it was you, Bill. I don't remember. One of you brought up pencil cases because remember at the end of the year, the pencil case would be totally jacked, right? I mean, it would be totally jacked up. There's
Yeah.
like your pens would bleed in there, and there'd be holes poked in there because you shoved your compass in there and it poked holes in the whole thing, or the zipper would be totally janky. So for some reason, every year there was something very like refreshing about getting all the new stuff, like a new pencil case that was clean, or erasers that were not like this big anymore. Or in my day, we would have the character erasers, like erasers that were shaped like rubber ducks, or
Mhm.
erasers that were shaped like elephants and dogs and things like that. And they actually looked like how they were supposed to, rather than, just being like a fraction of the size and just like with all these rounded corners and covered in schmutz. Like there was just something really nice about getting fresh school supplies and having everything be exactly the way they were supposed to look. But I think my favorite thing to get were the multicolored pens, either like the gel pens, or you guys remember the pen that had like 4 different colors in
Oh yeah.
that single pen? That was my jam. I freaking loved those pens because then you could take notes in all the different colors. I wanted to know, what were your favorite things to
All right.
get?
Well, I will be simple because that was literally my favorite thing. The
Okay.
Bic 4 color pen. I love that damn pen. We would get some blue ones, some black ones, and the Bic one because it had red and green in it. And then also going off the board, because I did throw so much of a fit because of poor wardrobe choices, if we were at, say, Montgomery Ward's, they had a pet section. And as you both know, I keep tropical fish. And so to chill me the F out, we would stop and we would get some fish for the tank to take care of. So
Nice.
it was a nice byproduct. Not a school supply, but a good thing nonetheless. Esteban, your answer.
Cynthia, you hit the nail on the head with the multicolored Big Pen. When those things came out, it was like the greatest thing ever. I mean, yes, there have been other things that have, Bill and I, we just did an episode about when Atari came out and some of the video stuff came out. But in terms of simplicity, that pen, when that thing came out, that was like I was like all over that. The other thing I would say as a kid, lunchbox, because by the end of the year, you could not close that thing. That whole mechanism to close it and keep it closed, you wore it out. You got it was a metal, so you got some crap in it. And basically what my mom would do is turn it into a storage container for like some kitchen crap, or my dad would use to keep like loose nails and screws or something in his toolbox. So you got a new one as a kid. And so it's always like, okay, what's the new thing this year that I want to get for the lunchbox? And there was a whole lunchbox comparison in schools, like, ooh, you got it. I'm gonna really Gen X myself. Ooh, you got a Jackson 5 one. Or as you got older, it's like, the girls would get whatever the hot thing was, and the guys would get something different. Like I remember getting a $6 million man one and felt like, yeah. So that was
I could win on lunch boxes, but we got to do that next episode.
Okay, cool. But that was the other thing I look forward to getting.
That lunchbox pool was excellent.
Oh yes,
and that's a good one to delve right into the next time when we talk about the first day of school, when lunchbox comparison was but one of the many highlights. Until that time, for Cynthia and Steve, I'm Bill. You've been watching or listening to But Before We Go. Bye now.